Hey, what's going on, Wealthy Legacy Journeyers? Welcome back to the Wealthy Legacy Journey, the show where we talk about building wealth on purpose for a purpose, where we encourage you to explore the unknown, to conquer new frontiers, and to live out a powerful journey that results in a wealthy legacy. I'm your host, Kendell, and the title of today's episode is Complexity Ceilings and Capital Cycles. I'm really excited for all the things we're going to share today. Going to share a presentation from a gentleman named Dan Martell. Going to share some of the cool updates that we have coming to the show. Going to share some bittersweet news that I have in my own personal life. And then at the end of the episode, we're actually going to dive into a really powerful principle that I've learned and I've applied in my own life called the investor capital cycle. It's a framework. I've got a doodle with it because I don't know about you guys, but I am a visual learner. And so I thought a really cool thing to incorporate in some of these episodes would be some more visual tools for just learning and kind of getting a sight into Kendall's brain. Because I think sometimes when I go through these episodes, I talk so quickly about so many different things that maybe it doesn't quite stick. So doing some more visual stuff on basically it's an electronic whiteboard, I think will be really helpful. But to start back, the first thing that I wanted to talk about today was some of the really exciting updates that are coming to the show. So as we talked about last week, we have upgraded lighting, which is so cool. This week, we're going to be debuting the rest of our upgraded equipment, such as upgraded microphone, upgraded camera. We've got the tablet here for doing some really cool visual aid demonstrations for some, concepts that we'll be talking about through the episodes. I'm really excited to introduce all of these different technologies to the Wealthy Legacy Journey to help improve your experience. Because as I say at the end of every episode, each of these episodes are dedicated to you and your own wealthy legacy journey. So how can I serve you at the highest level possible? With all that said, let's dive into today's episode. The first thing I want to talk about is this presentation from Dan Martell. Now, before I go any further, there is going to be a link to the YouTube video, which is the presentation that Dan Martell gave, the same link that I used to watch. It was absolutely amazing. I've probably watched this presentation 3 or 4 times over the past week. I've sent it to multiple people, whether beginner investors as well as investors that are beyond where I'm at as investors and entrepreneurs. All of them have received value from the video. It was absolutely amazing. So make sure that you go to the description, watch the presentation by Dan Martell. But the first thing he talks about in this video is complexity ceilings, those moments in life where we hit the most challenging thing that we've ever faced, right? And this doesn't just happen or apply in business. This happens in our marriages. This happens in our relationship with our kids. This happens in the relationships with our families. This happens in our investments, in our job, in the business that we own and we run, right? All of these different arenas, we hit these most challenging thing that we've ever hit up to this point moments, right? One thing that Dan Martell said, though, he said, when you go through the worst, we're actually developing our skills to get to the next level. And I thought that's so good. He said how you should thank life for the opportunity to go through the struggle, to go through the challenges that you're facing today, because those challenges and struggles are preparing you for who you need to be in order to face what's coming tomorrow. So powerful. So there was 3 main principles that I got from this presentation. I'm going to share with you how did Kendall receive and want to apply these in my wealthy legacy journey. How do I feel like it applies to us and our wealthy legacy journeys together? But you should go and watch the video for yourself as well to get some of those little golden nuggets that might apply to you that don't quite as much apply to me. First thing that Dan Martell talked about is the buyback principle. Quote, don't hire to grow your business, hire to buy back your time. He said, if you do the first, you might not get the second, but if you do the second, you definitely get the first. Really powerful. So there's 3 steps inside of the buyback principle. First is audit, then transfer, then fill. And auditing, it's all about looking at your schedule, looking at what you do, looking at your task list, figuring out what are the green things that bring me joy, they fill my tank, and what are the red things that really suck the energy and the life out of me that I'm not designed by the Lord to do that thing probably, right? That thing really wears me out, but hey, doing this over here, I really enjoy that. I thrive off of that. And let me just say, all of it's work, right? But at the end of the day, if I were going to pick one work to do, I'd pick this one over that one. Well, take this one that you would pick, continue to do that and more of that, take that one that you wouldn't do, Find somebody who absolutely loves to do that thing. A practical example for me, I don't enjoy organization whatsoever, but I have met people that absolutely geek out on organization. There's this place, I think it's called the Container Store. It's got all sorts of containers of all sorts of different shapes and sizes. For example, my sister loves that place. She thinks that organization is one of the greatest things that God ever created. I think organization is absolutely awesome when other people are doing it, because it keeps my life efficient and organized, right? But me having to do it myself, like, oh, no thanks. So that's one of those things in life that I would rather offload to somebody else that really enjoys organization, organizing things such as my calendar, such as guest interviews and things like that for the Wealth Legacy Journey. But that's not something that I necessarily want to do. I value it. I just don't really want to do that work. So transferring it to other people. But then step number 3 is taking that free time that you've now created and filling it with new life-giving creation time that will continue to take you upward. There was this really cool concept that Dan Martell introduced during this presentation. He calls it the replacement ladder. And this is when you're building out a company or you're building out a wing or a section or anything like that. This is how you build a company from the ground up, and you hire starting at the bottom and building your way. At the bottom of this ladder is the admin. This would be like an like personal executive, an office manager, something like that. The next letter is success. This would be like like a transaction coordinator, something in that kind of lane. Then you have marketing, and then you have sales, and then you have your high level management team. He goes into all the rungs, why you do it in this order, what those roles look like for different businesses, and how it's going to make you feel and give you success as an investor, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. So make sure you go watch the video to understand that. But it gave me a lot of clarity. Like in the past, I have hired project managers. I have thought about hiring, when I was doing the land flipping, I thought about hiring a sales guy. I just didn't know, do I hire a transaction coordinator? Do I hire a sales guy? Do I hire more of like an office? Like, who do I hire? I didn't even know. And you know what? Looking back, I'm kicking myself, because when you hit the complexity ceiling, right? The thing that's the most difficult thing that you've ever faced before, and you don't really know how to push through it, what's the best thing that you could do? Go find the people who have pushed through that well, that can teach you, here's what I did that worked, and go do that thing, which is what we're doing here at the Wealthy Legacy Journey, teaching you how to build wealth, how to build a legacy. I didn't do that the first 2 times around. I should have read books like EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey. I should have read books like Good to Great by Jim Collins. I should have watched videos just like this presentation here by Dan Martell, but I didn't, and it kicked me in the butt. But I'm doing things differently this time around. So as you're thinking about building anything, you're going to need team, you're going to need help. So I encourage you to watch this video and understand the replacement ladder for yourself. Next powerful thing that Dan Martell talked about during this presentation that was life-changing for me was that there are 2 types of leadership. How many types? There are 2 types. Type number 1 is transactional leadership, which most of us fall into this category. And when I first explain it, you're going to be like, yeah, it sounds pretty reasonable. But the second type of leadership, he calls transformational leadership. Let me talk about transactional leadership. And I want you to listen to this and think, you in your, whether it's your investments, you're working with a realtor, or it's you inside of your job, maybe as some sort of team manager, project manager, or it's you inside of your business managing your team. I'm going to say this, and I want you to say, like, if you resonate with that or if you've moved beyond that type of leadership. So transactional leadership has 3 steps. Step number 1, tell them what to do. Step number 2, check that the work's been done right. And step number 3, then tell them what to do next. And that sounds pretty reasonable, right? Like, okay, I'm going to hire you. I'm going to tell you what to do. Make sure you do the thing right. And then I'm going to have you do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. You become this task manager. The crazy part about it, though, or at least the part that drives you crazy, is all of a sudden when you have a bunch of different projects going, a bunch of different team members doing this and doing that and doing the other, all of a sudden you're keeping up with this person and that person and this person and that person and that person and this person. And when this person finishes their job, you have to make sure they have their next task. And then when this person doesn't do their job right, you've got to make sure that you go correct them and teach them how to do that job right. And then you got to go to this person, and you end up spending all of your time making sure that everybody else does their job right. And you have 0 time to do the job that you need to do in order to build your investment, your business, and things like that. I learned this inside of our tax sale, inside of our 2 acres with Palestine, when I realized I needed to take a step back, relax, let the agent do what the agent does best. I have to do what, instead of this transactional leadership, I need to move into this transformational leadership. But what is transformational leadership? Well, there are 3 steps with transformational leadership. Step number 1 is describe the desired outcome. Just simply stating, what does a 10 out of 10 look like? Step number 2 is then measure the results over time, but you have to determine what is their number one number that's going to say, hey, you've been successful, or hey, you failed in this area. Let's take a secretary, for example. Let's say that your number one number is how many times does the phone ring? Well, that's pretty easy to break down. If they're letting it, let's say you said, okay, the goal is the phone never rings more than 2 times. But let's say on average that the phone is ringing 4 times before they answer the phone. Is that success or is it failure? Easy, failure. Let's say that most of the calls are going to voicemail. Success or failure? Failure. Let's say that most of the calls on average are ringing 1.5 times before they're answered. Success or failure? Success. It's very easy to measure the level of success because you very clearly defined what does success look like. A huge part of transformational leadership is really being able to dial in and understand and define what success looks like for that role. Step number 3 is in coaching them if they fall short. Don't tell them what they did wrong and how to do it right, but instead we coach by clarifying the expectation violated and establish a defined principle. So the 4 steps in coaching are really, what was the principle that's violated? Step number 2, give them a story of when you personally learned or earned that principle. Step number 3, ask them what was a takeaway that they learned from that story. And step number 4 is have them make a commitment to ensure that this won't happen again. So, an example for me might be, let's say I've got contractors right now. I'm struggling with them getting to the finish line on time on their jobs. So I might be able to tell them a story of a time where I was doing a job and I didn't reach the end goal on time. There was actually a house Gunnison. I committed to being able to do this job in 3 weeks. After 3.5 weeks, the job still wasn't done because you know what? I actually underbid that job to get that job. Here was the problem though. After the 3 week mark, there was no more payments coming to me because that was how much time I bid for the job. That was it. We were out of money. So now I was working for free. So I might go coach contractors and say, hey, look, you're going over on time. You're not getting paid right now. Don't come to me for a paycheck. Like I've learned this before. I'm going to tell them my story and I'm going to say, what did you learn from that story? And they would probably say, I need to be realistic up front with how much time is this job going to take. And if I don't think I can accomplish it in the 3 weeks that you'd like me to get it accomplished in, we either need to up the budget or I might need to find another job to work. And I would probably say, I agree with that. I know I've seen crews get this level of work done in this many weeks. So you either got to be able to cut the cake, you got to be worth your salt, or it'd probably be better for you to go work for another project manager that has a different level of standards that you can meet. And I don't say that to be harsh. I just say that because I want to be able to clearly define what my expectations are. So it's very easy to measure whether they met those or they did not meet those expectations. Quote, delegate the outcome, not the task. Stop telling people what to do. Start telling them where we're going and let them decide how we are going to get there. The last thing that Dan Martell introduced during this presentation that was really powerful for me was the 1-3-1 rule. And it goes like this. When somebody has a problem, instead of them coming to you saying, hey, let's give an example of somebody went to the store and said, hey, Home Depot just ran out of paint, right? Home Depot has no paint whatsoever, which I don't think would ever happen. But let's just say Home Depot ran out of paint. They have no paint whatsoever. There's 2 things that could happen. Most of the time, most people train their employees to say, hey, Home Depot just ran out of paint. I don't know what to do. What should we do? And then they come to you for an answer and you have to think like, well, what are the options? How do we, and then they want you to say, you should probably go check Lowe's. Have you checked, Harbor Freight? Have you checked, or not Harbor Freight, any of the other hardware stores that carry paint? And they might go, oh yeah, I didn't even think to do that. And maybe you as a business owner, you go like, how did you not think about like checking your other stuff? Like, has anybody else been there? Because I've definitely been there before where it's like, how did you not think, like my brain thinks that way? Well, this 1-3-1 rule is a great way to be a transformational leader and set expectations in a way that sets your team up for success. So with the 1-3-1, they have one specific problem that they bring to you. In this case, it would be that Home Depot has ran out of paint. Our main paint supplier, Home Depot, no longer has any paint whatsoever. But they need to bring 3 viable options. They could say, hey, but even though Home Depot's ran out of paint, hardware store A has paint, hardware store B has paint, and hardware store C also has the paint that we're looking for. And then the third thing is, they need to have one specific recommendation out of those 3 options and explain why that's their number one recommendation. So they might say, hey, so even though, hardware store A, B, and C all have the paint that we're looking for, I think we should go with hardware store B because it's the closest to our job site and they have multiple locations all around the DFW area, which is where we do our projects. And so I might say, hey, I think that's a great idea based on what you said. Our main go-to hardware store doesn't have the paint. Let's switch everything over to hardware store B to make sure that all of our jobs can continue to run smoothly and correctly. Do you see the difference there? I wasn't the one required to make the decision. They brought information to me. They brought a decision to me. All they were checking with me is, do you see any flaw in my logic? Is there a reason that you disagree with what I'm doing? There's two things happening there. Number one, I'm able to make that decision really quickly because somebody else has already taken the time, energy to do the research needed to find that solution. The other thing is I'm training them, giving them the confidence to make those decisions faster and faster on their own. My hope would be is next time they run into a similar type of situation, like maybe this time our main go-to hardware store ran out of screws, they're going to be able to make that decision without even having to bring it to me because they already know the line of logic that I agree with. Does that make sense? So powerful. But when we think about actually a quote, last quote I'm going to say from Dan Martell's video, he said, build the people and the people build the business, which is absolutely amazing. How do we build people up so that they can build the business instead of trying to build the business up ourselves? Powerful, but I want to take that kind of a step in another direction and say, if we're going to build up people, I think the one person that we should focus on building up first is ourselves. We have two tools here at the Wealthy Legacy Journey that we love to share with you guys to help you build yourself up. One is the Wealth Health Checkup. We go in a couple different places where you can look at your budget and figure out how to build more surplus and take away the deficit from your life's finances in your cash flow and your net worth and your buying power. The other tool that we have is the Wealthy Legacy Journey resources page, where we have books referenced such as EntreLeadership, Good to Great, two books that we've already talked about in this episode. We will have the videos such as Dan Martell's video presentation where he talks about this thing here with hitting complexity ceilings and how to work through those, right? And a lot of other great resources that we've talked about on past episodes as well as future episodes. And one of the other things that are going to come to the Wealthy Legacy Journey resources page as of this episode are going to be our frameworks and doodles like the investor capital cycle, which we're going to be talking about today. So make sure you go down to the description, check out the Wealth Health Checkup to get your finances straight, get yourself into as powerful of a surplus as possible to get your wealth snowball going, and check out the Wealthy Legacy Journey resource page, both of those being absolutely 100% free to you. These are tools that help me in my Wealthy Legacy journey, and I want to share these with you guys to help you in your Wealthy Legacy journey. Now, a powerful concept that I want to talk with you guys about is the power of observing, learning, and then repeating. I've done this so many different times, right? Even here in this hiring complexity ceiling that I'm hitting, I should have practiced this. Observe, learn, and repeat, right? A practical way that I've applied this in my own life is the other day, our sprinkler system, it was kind of gurgling. It wasn't spraying out quite right. And the sprinklers are hooked up to the septic system. Well, funny enough, about a year ago or so, we had our septic pump cleaned, our septic system cleaned and pumped. The guy came and he cleaned the pump off, and I watched what he did. He's the expert, but I observed what he did. I learned what he did and why he did it. And then the next time that I saw the same problem pop up in my yard, I was able to then repeat what he did, and it created the solution that I needed for my septic system. That's the same thing that we need to do in our own lives within our business and our investments, where we hit this place that we're not really sure how to move forward. Don't try to be the expert ourselves. I think it's powerful to hire an expert to teach you what to do. There's lots of free experts on YouTube, which is an absolutely amazing resource. There's also a lot of experts that we can hire to learn how to move through those complexity ceilings. But we observe the expert, we learn what they do, and then we repeat what they've done. A bittersweet moment for me in this past week was that our house went under contract. And I want to be like, yes, like, woohoo, our house is under contract. So exciting. But there's a lot of unknown and difficulty in what we're moving into. We've done this in order to increase our cash flow by keeping our income consistent, decreasing our expenses. But it puts us in this place where we are really exploring the unknown with a desire to conquer new frontiers, knowing that our journey is powerful and our wake will be a wealthy legacy. But, stepping into that unknown is scary. And taking 5 people, 3 of those people being under the age of 5 years old, and moving them to a fifth wheel is a daunting thing. I'm going to have to give up my secluded office. My office is going to be inside of our trailer. We're getting this toy hauler, so the bed goes up and then it's like an office. And then you have 3 kids and my wife like in the room next door as I'm trying to record all my podcasts. And we're going to eventually start doing entrepreneur interviews. And, hopefully that we can get this whole thing up off the ground between our investments and the Wealthy Legacy Journey, where we can rent out an office space or something like that. But it's kind of this moment where you're stepping into the fog going like, I don't really know what's next, but I know what the next right step is. Wow. These moments in life are hard, but I would just encourage you, don't shy away from taking the next right step, even when it's scary and difficult and unknown. Because if it's truly the next right step that over a sequence of many, many steps is going to get you to that end goal of where you want to go, it will be worth it. So what is that next right step in your own life that you're hesitating about right now? Like, oh, I know what I need to do, but I really don't want to do it. I would encourage you right now, take that step. Another question we've been having is, do we go to this next tax sale? And if honestly, we went to March, we didn't go to April, we didn't go to May. I thought June's going to be the month, right? Well, now that the house is under contract, we're almost done with option. As long as option goes smoothly, I probably won't go to this tax sale either, which is disappointing. But on the other hand, I've continued to do the due diligence every single month. I saw deals that I was excited about in April. I saw deals that I was excited about in May. I saw deals that I was really excited about this month. But I think the note of encouragement, and by the way, March was a great month as well. The note of encouragement I had from that though was there's still deals out there. So it's better for me to set myself up for success now. This is not analysis paralysis. This is setting myself up for success now in order to set myself up for the greatest success in the future, right? So the last thing I want to talk about, and we're going to switch over here. This is the first time on a Wealthy Legacy Journey episode that we are going to go to the tablet and we're going to go to a doodle, but we are going to look at the powerful investor capital cycle framework where most people get stuck mentally versus where powerful high-level entrepreneurs focus their time, energy, and attention. So I'm actually going to stop my video for everybody who's watching YouTube, but we are not going to stop the microphone there, and I'm going to share my screen. Now, by the way, for anybody who is listening to the podcast of this, I think everything's set up correctly. You should be able to see my tablet. If you're listening to the podcast, you can go to the Wealthy Legacy Journey resources page. It's in the description of the episode on Spotify or Amazon or Apple Podcasts. And you can scroll through there to the framework section and just find the investor capital cycle, and you're going to see exactly what we're looking at. But for everybody who's on the YouTube video, you should be able to see the screen right now. I went ahead and pre-drew this out because I'm going to be honest with you guys. My computer, I'm not sure if it's CPU or memory problem or what, but it's super laggy whenever I try to use the tablet with the pen at the same time as I'm recording a Zoom video. And so I found that it's better to go ahead and draw everything out first. I'm going to make little notes on here, but I'm not going to do the big drawing on camera. Step number 1 of the investor capital cycle is allocating funds. And then step number 2 is picking a strategy. Step number 3 is then waiting for that strategy to produce a return. Step number 4 is liquidating. And then you have a return on investment that's typically represented in a form of percentage. And then you're going to be able to have a greater pool of allocated funds for the next investment. Now, the first place that I ever learned about this capital cycle was the first flip that I ever did. It was off of Bright Street in Fort Worth, Texas. It was, at least at that time, it still is a rougher area. At that time, it was absolutely the hood. I had somebody who was going to finance pretty much all of it. And it was my first flip that I had ever done. I ended up getting in way over my head. We almost lost a lot of money on that deal. But I realized this powerful cycle from it because we did end up making some money. But we put a little bit of money in and we entered into the strategy of real estate. As you can see, there's lots of strategies you can enter into. We did real estate, fix and flip specifically. It took about 6 months for me to be able to complete that job. And from that, I think we ended up making like $10,000. I can't remember what the ROI percentage was on that deal, to be honest with you guys, but I remember we made like $10,000. The reason that deal was so profound to me was because we actually finished that deal. It was like weeks before or weeks after my first daughter was born. We thought we were going to lose a lot of money on that deal, money we didn't even have to lose. And so that kind of scarred me. But we did the same thing again. We took more money. We went back into real estate. We did real estate even better. We spent time doing real estate over and over again, and we produced an ROI. And we've done this. And so this cycle right here is actually how I've hit $100,000 two times, and I'm about to hit my six-figure mark again for the third time. And this cycle right here is what's going to take me to $1 million. It's what's going to take me to 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion, and beyond. It's what's going to take you to 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, so on and so forth, right? This is the cycle that we're working on within Double Dare Your Money. We just start with a smaller capital pool. So looking at each of these steps specifically, allocating funds, this would be absolutely as much as possible. The amount matters a lot less. The percentage of your income matters a lot more. So the Wealth Health Checkup is a great place to look at your income. How can you get your income up? How can you get your expenses down? How can you diversify your types of income, right? Not just active income where you're trading your time for money, but how can you trade your time and money for money, which is really where you get into this investor capital cycle. And then passive investment income is where you trade your time, or you're specifically just your money for money. You don't have to put your time in anymore. But you start off with this pool of capital. And then step number 2 is you pick a strategy. And there's lots of different strategies. There's real estate. There is stocks and options. There is building a business. There's online marketing and stuff like that. And there's tons and tons and tons and tons of other examples of strategies. So one thing I want you guys to not get hung up on is there is one way to make money and there's no other way to make money. Like, it drives me crazy. I've made money in multiple different ways. I know lots of entrepreneurs, lots of investors who've made monies in tons and tons and tons of different ways. I heard of somebody just the other day who makes money by selling a membership course to a rock collecting group. I'm not even exactly sure how that works or who's going to buy a membership to a rock collecting group or why. But what I do know is that this woman makes over 6 figures a year. So, hey, you know what? Kudos to her. It's not a scam. She's actually delivering value to these people. They really enjoy being a part of the group. I don't really understand it. I don't have to understand it. It's her strategy that works for her. Lots and lots and lots of strategies to building wealth. So don't get hung up on there's only one way that's the right way and every other way is the wrong way. What's key with your strategy is making sure that you understand it inside and out better than anybody else. I think it was Warren Buffett, maybe Robert Kiyosaki that said this, but they said it's not the investment itself that's risky. It's the investor that makes the investment risky. So as your competency goes up in a specific strategy, the risk inside of that strategy, inside of that investment goes down further and further. There's an inverse correlation there. And so as your knowledge goes up, the risk goes down. I wish I could be drawing this out right now, but I just know it would lag like crazy on the tablet. So then the third step is waiting. You have to let your funds sit in the investment vehicle for the full duration of your plan to maximize your gain. The ROI is great unless there's tons of high yield opportunities. And then what we're going to do is look for ROI over time, right? For example, if you have tons of opportunities, getting 10% in a week as an ROI might beat 20% in a year. But this just depends on where you're at in your business. If you have a couple $100 and you're at the very beginning of Double Dare Your Money, it's going to be really easy to double your money in just a couple weeks. But if you run a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund, you might be doing really well to have 20% in a year. And then lastly, this is when we get to liquidate the investment. Now you've taken the time to do the process. You've added value. You've waited for the value to increase. You sold the product, whatever it is that your strategy calls for. Now you should have more than what you started with in order to create a investment. And so this is your ROI in terms of percentage, right? If you started off with $100 and then you made, let's say, another $100, you'd have 100% ROI. Now you have $200. And that extra money, we need to take absolutely as much of it as possible and reinvest it into our allocation of funds, into our capital pool. Now, but here is the thing that's really, really powerful. Where do you think most people focus most of their time, energy, attention, thought when they're thinking about investing? It would be steps 1 and steps 3 right here. And that is a trap. Most people say, oh, but it takes so much time. My money is going to be tied up for who knows how long. And, oh, I just don't have enough money to participate in that opportunity because they just don't think they have enough money to invest, or they don't want to wait for their money to turn over. And so there's impatience there as they're focusing on the clock. And there is just this mindset of lack as they're focusing on the amount of capital that they have to invest. You know what the difference is, though, between everyday people and then the pro investors out there is, while everyone else is getting focused on what they have or even lack thereof, and also how they don't want to take the time to wait for the thing to pay off because we live in an instant gratification society, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. Professional investors focus right here. Steps 2 and steps 4. They focus on becoming the best of the best of the best in a particular strategy that can yield, that's step 2, that can yield them a strong ROI. Step 4. And they're good at waiting. It's not to say that people don't think about all of it, right? Because somebody might say, I really want to flip a house because I think flipping a house makes a lot of money. So we've just covered step 2 and step 4. But I don't know if I want to tie up my money for 6 months. There's step 3, this like negative, like, ooh, that's the big focus. And I don't have enough money to flip a house. So I guess I'm just out of the real estate investing game altogether. There's step number 1. They've let their focus become on what they can't do based on what steps 1 and 3 instead of focusing on steps 2 and 4 of what they can do. Whereas a professional investor, kind of like myself, give you an example. Hudson, great example. 13 acres. We split it up into 6 different lots. I have 1/3 of that deal. I put in the time. I didn't put in any of the money. And I'm going to end up making about $120,000 on that deal. I don't say that to brag, but I say that to look at the attention. I found a lane that I thought I could get really, really, really good at. And I picked this lane right here, real estate, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Building a business is super cool. Online stuff is super cool. Stocks and options, super cool. There's lots of different ways that lots of people make money. And I'm really bad about shiny object syndrome. And I think there's so many cool people out there who do so many cool things. And I would love to try them all. But I realize that the success is not in, being able to do so many different things. It's really getting focused in and dialed in on what I'm really good at. So the Wealthy Legacy Journey, we're building a business. We're doing this online stuff. And as I'm doing this, I'm like realizing I'm starting to circle everything. So yeah, just like don't judge me. Anyways, but my main investment that I'm focusing on right now is real estate. That's even why we paused the beginning of Double Dare Your Money. So I could continue focusing on the investment that I am really, really good at in order to continue to launch my family forward into our own financial freedom. And then step number 4 is I've gotten better and better and better and better at finding those high yield opportunities. Did you hear the story I said, though, about Bright, the first deal that I ever did? I almost lost the shirt off my back when I did Bright because I was at the very beginning of the game. But I continued to improve. I continued to grow. I continued to learn. I continued to pivot. And I got better and better. And instead of focusing on not having enough money, I got more resourceful. Instead of saying, I don't have enough time to want to learn this, I said, you know what? If I take the time now to do this, it's going to pay off in dividends later. You realize that we're over a year into the Wealthy Legacy Journey. I haven't made one penny on this. I've spent hours and hours learning how to communicate on videos, and I would say I've gotten a lot more comfortable. Hopefully, I've gotten better at communicating a message and teaching a lesson. And I know that that skill set is going to be able to pay off in dividends. But the thing that I really focused on was strategy and was figuring out how to find better and better and better deals that produced higher and higher and higher returns. So staying focused here and not getting stuck in the mud here, huge life-changing mindset shift. So that is the investor capital cycle. By the way, just as a reminder for anybody on YouTube and anybody who is on Spotify, you can get access to this drawing again at the Wealth Legacy Journey resources page. But with all that said, guys, I think it's time to close out this episode with our identity mantra. Now, the spoken word is extremely, extremely, extremely powerful. So I'm going to say this first. And you say this after me. In fact, I'm going to jump over here so you can see me and I can see you guys. Actually, I can't see you guys because it's recording, but I'm going to say it first. You say it after me. I explore the unknown. I conquer new frontiers. My journey is powerful, and my wake is a wealthy legacy. Man, isn't that awesome? And by the way, guys, as a reminder, the way we define wealthy here at the Wealthy Legacy Journey is simply the ability to cover your monthly expenses without having to lift a finger. It isn't about being necessarily a multi-billionaire. It's about creating cash flow that gives you freedom. And the way we define legacy is leaving a long lasting impact on others who come after you as they receive the fruit of your labor. But we always remember that fruit can either be good or bad. The fruit that we produce depends on the seeds that we plant and the trees that we cultivate, because those trees that we cultivate are going to produce the fruit. So, what seeds are you planting in your life right now? What trees are you caring for and cultivating in your life right now? What fruit do you think is going to come from the seeds and the trees that you're working on right now for people who come after you? Man, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on this episode. If you enjoy the episode, please please subscribe. It really helps the algorithm push the video up so more people can enjoy our content with you guys. As one last reminder, in the description of Spotify, YouTube, all the platforms, there is going to be a link to the Wealthy Legacy Journey resource page, the Wealth Health Checkup, Dan Martell's presentation video, all of those being awesome and put there in order to help you in your wealthy legacy journey. With all that said, guys, this has been another episode dedicated to you and your own personal wealthy legacy journey. Now go out there and simply take the right next step today. I can't wait to hear y'all's success stories. Make sure you let me know about them. With all that said, I will see you guys on the next episode. Bye, everybody.